Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. The acrid smell of smoke fills the air. Alarms blare in the distance. A subway station descends into chaos as people scream, shove, and scramble for safety. In the heart of the chaos, one voice rises above the panic. It's calm, steady, unwavering. But here's the twist. This voice belongs to Amara, a woman who's blind. This is the story of how she turned the darkest moment of her life into one of unimaginable courage, forgiveness, and unity. But let me ask you, would you trust someone you doubted, someone you mocked, to save you? Think about that as we step into Amara's extraordinary journey. Amara lived in the city that never sleeps, surrounded by endless movement and noise. To some, it was the perfect place to blend in. To others, like Amara, it was a daily test of resilience. Blind since birth, she had grown used to navigating a world designed for people who could see. Her days were meticulously planned, from the familiar route to her office job at a tech company to her evenings at home in her modest apartment. But while she excelled at work, answering calls, solving problems, and typing faster than most of her sighted colleagues, her neighbors saw her differently. They'd chuckle under their breath when she passed by with her white cane. "There she goes again," they'd say. "Hope she doesn't walk into another mailbox." Amara had learned to ignore the mockery, but it still lingered in the corners of her mind. "They don't know me," she told herself. "They don't need to." Her sanctuary was her home, a quiet space filled with braille books, a talking clock, and the soft glow of scented candles. Yet even there, she couldn't escape the nagging question, what if they're right? What if I'm not capable of more? She had no idea that her chance to answer that question was just around the corner. It was a Tuesday evening like any other. Amara stood on the subway platform, headphones on, listening to her favorite podcast. The vibrations of an incoming train began to hum through the floor beneath her feet. Then, it happened. Boom! A thunderous explosion shattered the air. The platform shook violently, throwing people off balance. Amara instinctively gripped the nearby railing, her pulse pounding in her ears. Screams erupted. Smoke filled the station, burning her nose and throat. The faint hum of the train was replaced by blaring alarms and the panicked shuffle of hundreds of feet. Amara's heart raced as fear coursed through her veins. She couldn't see the chaos, but she could feel it, hear it. A voice shouted nearby, "The exits are blocked." In that moment, Amara faced a choice: retreat into herself or step forward into the unknown. She took a deep breath, her fingers tightening around her cane. The world around her was in chaos, but a quiet determination stirred within her. As the smoke thickened and panic grew, Amara's sharp ears picked up patterns amidst the noise, fragments of conversations, the faint whoosh of air from ventilation shafts, the distant crackle of flames. She steadied herself, raising her voice above the chaos. "Stay calm," she called out. "There's another way out." Most people ignored her. Why would they listen to her, a blind woman, when their own fear was screaming louder? Amara swallowed her frustration. She wasn't going to give up. "The service tunnel to the left," she shouted. "It leads to an emergency exit." Suddenly she heard a familiar voice. "Amara?" It was James, one of her neighbors, the same man who had once joked she'd get lost in her own apartment without her gadgets. His tone was laced with disbelief. "Amara, what are you talking about?" he asked, coughing through the smoke. "Trust me," she said firmly. "I know the layout of this station. We can get out, but we have to move now." James hesitated. He wasn't sure if he believed her, but the desperation in the air left him no choice. He grabbed her arm. "All right," he said. "What do we do?" Amara's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Follow me." The group began to move cautiously through the smoke-filled station, guided by Amara's voice. "Turn left here," she instructed, using the echoes of her cane taps to gauge the space around her. But doubt lingered. A woman in the group muttered under her breath, "Why are we listening to her? She can't even see where she's going." Amara didn't let the comment faze her. "I may not see, but I can hear things you can't. Trust me on this." Her confidence began to chip away at their skepticism. As they entered the narrow service tunnel, the group grew quieter, their focus shifting from doubt to survival. The tunnel was dark and cramped, filled with debris. At one point, they encountered a fallen beam blocking the way. Frustration bubbled over. "We're stuck!" someone shouted. "This was a mistake." Amara knelt down, feeling along the edges of the beam. "There's space underneath," she said. "We can crawl through." James spoke up, his voice firm. "She's right. Let's go." One by one, they followed Amara's lead, squeezing through the narrow gap. The air was heavy with tension, but each small victory strengthened their trust in her. Just as they thought they were making progress, the group encountered a new threat: water. It was pooling at their feet, rising quickly from a broken pipe. Panic surged once more. "We're going to drown!" a man cried. Amara took a deep breath, focusing on the sound of the water. It wasn't stagnant, it was moving. "There's an outlet ahead," she said. "We just have to keep going." The group hesitated, fear holding them back. But James stepped forward. "If she says there's a way, there's a way. Let's move." Encouraged by his support, the group waded through the icy water, clinging to Amara's voice as their guide. The current grew stronger, pulling at their legs. One man slipped, and James caught him just in time. "We're not leaving anyone behind," he shouted. Amara's leadership wasn't just about directions anymore. It was about unity, about keeping everyone together against the odds. Finally, the group reached an emergency exit. The door was blocked by debris, but the faint glow of daylight seeped through the cracks. "We're almost there," Amara said. Everyone worked together, pushing and pulling until the door creaked open. Daylight poured in, and the group stumbled out into the open air, coughing and shivering, but alive. For a moment, they stood in stunned silence. Then, the gratitude began to pour out. James approached Amara, his voice trembling. "You saved us," he said. I never thought you could, but you did." The others nodded in agreement, their expressions a mix of relief, shame, and admiration. Amara felt a swell of emotion, but she simply said, "We did it together." Amara's story didn't just save lives that day, it changed perspectives. The people who had mocked her saw her in a new light, and for Amara, the experience was a revelation. She realized that her greatest strength wasn't her sight. It was her ability to stay calm, to listen, and to lead. So what's holding you back? If Amara could lead in the dark, imagine what you could do with the light.